Hello, if anyone can hear me out there, I would love to know that you can hear me. That would be cool. I'm about to talk to myself for about an hour and a half. I can hear myself great. I think I can see some comments on here. Welcome to the webinar about solar power in New Brunswick and other things that might be of interest, that might make sense. Got 3 viewers tuned in here. If anyone is tuned in, just give me a little thumbs up or something if you can hear me okay. That would be great. Thanks, Phil Gibson. You can hear me. I always struggle how to start these webinars. Do you wait until some more people get in? That way you don't have to repeat yourself. Knowing that later on that they can tune in and you'll be able to watch this webinar or podcast or whatever you want to call it later. So, sun's going down. We wanted to talk about the sun behind its back, so we'll just wait a little bit and we can talk about it. It's a nice sunny day today. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been well advertised, and I love doing these webinars, especially after the end. At first, I'm a little nervous about what I'm going to talk about, and I've got a sheet I'm going to follow, but I think what will happen is we'll just get into the flow of things, and I'll just get yakking and talking about the sun and everything, and it'll just flow. So, who am I? Some of you guys might know me. My name is Rudy Fowler. I'm the owner of East Coast Sun. I am just south of Fredericton. I live off-grid in an awesome house. It's a log home. We are living the dream out here in Tracy. I've never paid a power bill in my life, and it's kind of turned into a business over the last 20 years. I've probably responsible for 10 to 15,000 solar panel installs in the province, and I know a little bit about solar energy, and I find a lot of people I talk to on a day-to-day basis don't, and I like to do these. It answers a lot of questions, and then if people find me online later, they can kind of watch this. So yeah, I guess we'll get right into it. I'll talk about, I guess, East Coast Sun, but more so I want to talk about why you guys are here, which I've learned that 98% of my customers get solar because they want to save money. And I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things to save money outside of solar, and if you watched a couple of my videos there recently, I speak about things like that. And I've kind of coined the term defense before offense, and we'll talk about that soon. So, and what that means for solar energy. So, first thing I guess I want to talk about is maybe we'll talk about our power rates. You guys who are tuned in probably have a power bill, and you're probably not happy with it. One of the things people often, you don't hear them say, is I have too much money and my power bill is too low. Stuff like that. So, anyways, wintertime in New Brunswick, our power rates, I'm not going to talk about the rates yet, but we'll talk about your power bills. And this winter, people were getting power bills that were $500 to $1,000 a month. And I see some comments there. Some guys are moving to the east, and I know it might be scaring you. But our power rates in New Brunswick actually aren't that bad when you compare it to Ontario and further west. I'm not sure what they are in British Columbia. Quebec has the cheapest rates. And the reason our rates are higher, I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, MB Power, they have big bonuses and their employees are getting a lot of money. I can tell you that out of MB Power's, I'm not defending them, but out of MB Power's total budget, their salaries are 3%. The rest of it's like fuel and generation, refurbishment, and stuff like that. The reason the power rates are cheaper in places like Quebec is because they have resources like hydroelectric dams, and yeah, there's probably been some better choices over the years, but anyway, their rates are quite a bit cheaper than ours. Ours go up. Last year we had a 9.7% increase this year was 9.7, and last year it was 13 point something percent. So, hey, Jean-Guy from Bouctouche, and Phil, thanks for the comments there. So, Phil in Ontario, that he's probably familiar with time of use billing, and in Ontario they have something that is coming to New Brunswick, and it's called time of use. I'm not sure what they call it there, but the way the utilities work, and we're going to talk about smart meters too, and I'm not even on my script, but we're jumping right in. In New Brunswick, we're implementing smart meters, and as New Brunswickers, we're all confused, and this is new to us, and we kind of see it as maybe a threat. It's something different than what we had before, and why do we need them? And anyways, Nova Scotia has them, Ontario has them, I'm not sure about Quebec. We've been rolling out smart meters across the province, and the reason is, and I've taken a little bit of flack from this, even from the CEO of MB Power, who's going to be watching this, no doubt. Hi. Time of use is coming. So time of use power, I agree with it. There's certain times of the day where it costs more money to make electricity. And that is because we're using more of it as users. I'm not an MB Power customer. Don't ever plan to be, but most people are. So in Ontario, they have peak times of the day would be in the morning. Everyone wakes up, 9 to 5ers. We get up and we race to the thing in the house that probably uses the most power, and it is our water heater. So what do? Take a shower. So first thing you do, take a shower, and then the water heater elements kick on. If you used a lot of hot water and it's a 60-gallon tank, you're going to use 6,500 watts of power. And guess what the neighbor's doing? Same thing, and they're doing the same thing. You turn on your thermostats because you want to heat it up a little bit. You fire up your coffee pot. There's another 2,000 watts. The in-floor heat in your bathroom. The lights come on, which really isn't much. But anyways, we use a lot of electricity at certain times of the day. In the morning, we're using a lot of electricity. Then we go to work. Guess what? House shuts down, thermostats go back down a bit, and then we're off to work, and then we come home for supper. And what are we doing when we get home? We turn on the lights, turn on the heat. Maybe if you're ambitious, you're cooking a turkey. And guess what else uses a lot of power? Think of all the things that use 220 in your house. The oven, if it's an electric oven. So as a utility, if I'm running MB Power, if I own a generator, because they own a whole bunch of generators, but let's pretend we bought a Costco generator, and we're running it in our subdivision, and we're selling power to everybody there. Well, I'm going to run the generator anyway. In the morning, you guys are bogging the thing right down. In the afternoon, I need to keep it running because I need to keep power on all the time. And then at nighttime, it's still running, and I might have to run a second one. So what that happens is it creates peaks, and we're going to end up, what's happening is the power companies are passing the costs on to the customer like any good business person would do. So if you're an owner of raise your hand if you own a power company. Actually, we all do. We own MB Power together. It's a Crown Corp. It's provincially owned, and it's responsible for half of the province's debt. And if you're paying taxes, we're paying for that. We should care how they operate, and part of my job is, I make my money selling solar and helping people solve the problems of high energy bills, and that's through defensive and offensive things. However, I love educating people on how things work as I get educated, and I'm not an expert on MB Power or anything like that, but I think it's important for everyone to understand how they work as a utility. And later on in this presentation, I'll talk to you about how I personally believe that solar doesn't help the power company at all. And we'll talk about how batteries are probably better. So, hey, Henry Pierre, he's a customer of mine. If smart meters enable us to have net metering, why not? Right, exactly. So, the goal of the province is to put net meters across the entire province, and that allows them to communicate with the customers. They can turn the power off. They can see when your power is off, but they can also see when you're using power. And they can also send power back and forth as a bidirectional meter. In order to have solar, if you want to send power back through your meter, you have to have a bidirectional meter so it can keep track of when the power is coming and going, which is important. And I'll get into net metering here soon, because I know there's some people probably wondering, or not understanding that we can actually send power back to the power grid, and why that's cool, and why Henry's really excited about that, because he's actually enjoying the benefits of net metering right now, because we did a solar job for him last summer. Okay, where was I? the power companies are going to be passing the cost of peak times off to us. So my Ontario friend on here, he actually benefits from, and at nighttime, depending on which program he's on in Ontario with, I think it's called OSB, Ontario Power. Anyways, it's 2 cents a kilowatt hour, and I know a lot of people don't understand what a kilowatt hour is, and I hope that to educate people in the future what a kilowatt hour is. 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Here, after tax in New Brunswick, we pay, as residential customers, you pay 16 cents a kilowatt hour. In Ontario, at nighttime, they have an ultra low rate where you can charge your electric car, you might want to run your clothes dryer, you can program all these things to align with the different rates. And they let you buy power at 2 cents a kilowatt hour. It's called ultra low. And in the daytime or in the mornings or at night, it would be expensive. So you can adjust your lifestyle through clever programming of your devices in the house, smart home type stuff, to use power when it's really cheap, and you can actually save some money that way. So New Brunswick is going to have that. Nova Scotia has that. And in order to do it, the power company has to have the smart meters in place to do that. It's part of the grid modernization. I think it's a good thing. A lot of people think it's a bad thing because guess what? They put a smart meter in this winter and their power bills went to the moon. And maybe it happened at the same time. There was a bunch of things. I know some customers noticed that the meter number on their meter, that you can do this is your homework, check the meter number on your meter and compare it to your power bill, make sure you're not paying for the neighbor's power bill. That happened a few times. Human error, no doubt. But anyways, the another theory was that the smart meters are reading correctly where the old meters were not, and your power is now more accurate. I actually took a third-party meter, and I have these on many homes, and we'll talk about energy monitors and how the inverters and stuff keep track of people's energy. So I did a third-party test and checked to see, to reconcile the electricity that went through your meter with the energy monitors versus the smart meters, and they were always within $1 or $2 at the end of the month. Trust me, I would love to debunk a smart meter from MB Power because it's good for business. It's especially when you're doing the homework and you're learning things. And anyways, they were always within $1 or $2. However, it's always in MB Power's favor. That said, the meters that we're using are like $200 meters. They're not a revenue grade meter, whereas the one on your home should be better. So that's smart meters. That's why we're implementing them as our power company. We own it together. Look at all my business partners in the comments here. Thanks for the nice hat, Justin. I know you're from Campobello. I know Justin Tinker's putting some solar on his place down in Campobello as well. So we're all in this together. We own MB Power together. Our power rates are going to go up. Either that or our debt is going to increase, and we're going to pay it somehow, or somebody is. Maybe the federal government will pay. Alberta will pay it for us. So they need to run it as a business. I do not envy Lori Clark and the management team at MB Power. They've been presented with a big problem of $5 billion in climbing worth of debt. I was in when our last, Brian Glant was our premier. I was invited to a bunch of energy summits, and they had some third-party consultants in there. And it was 10 years ago, in one of these meetings, I was told that in the next 25 years, which is probably only 10 years from now, 2/3 of MB Power's generating assets are going to need replacement or refurbishment. So if I own a generator and they're telling me my generators are going to be junked here soon and they need refurbishment or replacement, I need to make my money off of the customers, and I'm going to have to pay for that. So that's the struggle. We've got Mactaquac Dam that, it's like $6 to $10 billion, and we do have a history of staying on budget, especially with government projects, right? Our power rate's got to pay for that. I don't believe LaPro is working right now. I think it's down, and it costs us X amount of dollars a day. If anyone knows anybody who works at LaPro, they are not exactly in a hurry to get anything done. there's a nice cow that produces lovely milk. And this is why MB Power doesn't like me, because I can't keep my opinions to myself. Anyways, these are all problems that we have. We're talking small nuclear in the future. If that works, that will probably be really cool. So our power rates are going up. I'm a little long-winded on that, but our power rates are going to be going up because of all these assets are going to need refurbishment. Our power requirements are going up because we're pushing electric cars, and I don't know if you guys know this, we're going to get back to kilowatts and stuff. If you have a Ford F-150 Lightning long range edition, which many people do now, it has a 135 kilowatt hour battery. If you charge it in 1 hour, which I don't think you can, but let's say you could, it's 135 kilowatts is what it pulls from the grid. The average base load on a house is 1 kilowatt hour. That means your house is using 1,000 watts at any given moment. It's pretty realistic, especially this time of year. So when I plug in an F-150 long range electric vehicle and I ask it to charge in an hour, and it's 135 kilowatt hours and it was stone dead, it will be the same as putting 135 houses on the grid at the same time. Now me and Bob and Justin and Phil all have one, and we've just plugged them all in at a charging station. Guess what that just did to the grid? And it created on-demand electricity, which I'm going to save that for another video because I'm trying to keep this high level. So anyways, it's hard on the grid. We're adding things to the grid. We're electrifying things in our home with heat pumps, where in the past we used to use oil and firewood and stuff like that. We're putting more and more load on the grid. The grid is great because it creates convenience for us. It makes us comfortable. 55 years ago, it would have been okay to break the ice out of the toilet in the morning so you can use it. And now if it's not 19 degrees in your house in the morning, we are completely offended by that. Yes, we're a weaker generation. We, with modern technology, are more entitled to be comfortable, if I can say that. And this is me, and this is my people, and this is how we are. We have the technology. But guess what? It comes at a price. So, this is a lot of... let me know if I'm being long-winded. Give me some feedback, folks. Let's talk about net metering. So, let's talk about some solutions. I keep mentioning net metering. So, net metering is a program that MB Power has, and it's actually really good. I'm quite proud of it. Compared to other jurisdictions and other places across North America. It allows you to produce electricity, send it back out through your meter, so essentially running your meter in reverse. Today, if you were net metered, let's use Henry for an example, who's on this chat. He would have produced more electricity than he made today, and it actually went back out through his meter into his cul-de-sac. And MB Power accounted for that, and it went to the neighbors. The neighbors bought that electricity. It went through their meters. MB Power tracked it. They said those kilowatt hours came from our grid, and they resold it to the neighbor. So what happened with Henry's bill, he actually, it was accounted for, and he's saving that electricity for wintertime, when the days are shorter, and his power bill will be higher, because in the wintertime the days are shorter and we use more electricity because most of us heat, and I'm not sure how Henry heats. I believe heat pumps. If you're still tuned in, Henry, just let us know. He might even give us some stats on that today. I'm pulling my customers into this webinar, which is kind of cool, as long as you're cool with it. So that's net metering in a nutshell. So when I design a system for somebody for solar, I try to find out what their entire power bill is for the entire year, which should be available through MB Power. And I try to design a system that creates close to that same amount of electricity, and that's used in our forecasting and history of installations, and which is well available online too. So we can predict how much solar energy you're going to make based on the angles and your location and how many sun hours you get in a day. So we can store all that until the end of March, which is MB Power's year end, I believe. And what happens if you create more electricity than you create more electricity than you use? MB Power zeroes it out. You will never get a check from MB Power. However, you can use all that electricity that you saved, and I put a video out I think this morning that says, you know what the solar company people are doing right now? They're just stacking dollars and they're saving it for wintertime. There's Pat Robichaux. You get this month's report. That's kind of cool. So Pat, hopefully, we installed him. I believe he was commissioned a month or two ago. He should be he should be overproducing and saving that energy for the wintertime. So MB Power gives us 1 unit of electricity, and we are allowed to get the same dollar amount back when we send it back to them. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's been quite rare in North America now that we still have a 1-to-1 ratio with our net metering. Our net metering program is a little bit ancient because there's certain places that actually won't give you that 1-to-1 ratio back. And one of them is our neighbors to the south. You're going to think I'm saying Maine. It's actually St. John. And St. John, and Justin Tinker's on here. I know he's from, I think he lives in St. John. He is only able to get 50% back when he sends a kilowatt hour back to St. John Energy. So say if he was paying 20 cents for his electricity per kilowatt hour, and then he sent one back, he only gets 10 cents. And I know those aren't the correct numbers, but my point is the net metering program with MB Power is actually pretty good, and it enables people, it gives them a shelter from bad. It gives you, people say, oh, MB Power has a monopoly on us and we can't escape the power bills, and we're stuck with them. They're the only option in town. They have a monopoly, and the reality is you can do something through the net metering program, and it's solar, and it's incentivized. We can get a rebate from MB Power, and it's also, you can get it without putting any money down, and you can use an interest-free loan over 10 years, which I believe all of my customers that are speaking here have used. So I think I saw, let me see, Henry, you said you had a $45 power bill. Okay, so in the last 3 power bills, it was only $45. So when you hear companies, and you'll hear me say it too, $0 power bill, with MB Power, we can never get a $0 power bill. We can get a net zero power bill, which means the amount of electricity that we use minus what we generated can come to a net zero. We can never get away from that service fee. There's a service fee, and it used to be rural or residential and urban, and I believe they merged that during the last rate hearing. So it's around $27 to $32 with or without tax. You can never get away from that. If you're hooked to the grid, you're going to pay your service fee. You also have to pay electricity on the electricity. You have to pay taxes on the electricity that you use from MB Power. And there's a lot of misinformation about this, because people will say, oh, I have to pay tax on the electricity that I sent MB Power. I have to pay tax on that power. That's not the case. You don't have to pay tax on the power you send back. You don't pay tax on the power that you use, because when you use electricity from MB Power, and you generate it yourself, they can't keep track of it. I'm sure the government would love to tax the sun, but they can't. If you had solar power in your house today, Pat Robichaux, for instance, he's in here. He's a customer of mine in Moncton. He self-consumed the electricity that he used, so he got all his power this afternoon and this morning, whenever the sun was shining, from the sun, and he never paid any tax on it. Nobody was able to track that. His meter got spun the opposite direction as he sent his electricity out to the grid. The neighbors bought it. He didn't pay tax on that. Now, right now, the sun's down. Pat doesn't have a battery in his house, so he's buying electricity from the neighbors, from MB Power right now. And tomorrow he can put that electricity back, or he can take it from the bank that he already had stored. He will pay tax on the electricity that he uses at night. So if you use $10 of electricity today, if you put $10 of electricity on the grid today and you use $10 tonight, you'll be back to zero. However, you're going to have to pay the 50 cents at the end of it because he used $10 of electricity. And you're saying, well, how come it's only 50 cents? Well, the tax rate's 15%. It was 15%, but Susan Holt made a promise when she was running to get in as premier of this province that she would remove 10% which would be the provincial portion of the tax off of our residential power bill, and you'll see that as a credit on your power bills. So our actual tax rate on residential electricity through MB Power is only 5 cents. So that was good and bad. I'm just going to try to follow the comments here. Can you use this program with no smart meter? Natalie. Some customers do have ancient, older bi-directional meters, and they're not smart meters. They're just a bi-directional. So it's probably 5 or 7 years ago. I'm not sure when, but they were using it's just a bi-directional meter that it was not a smart meter. So we do have customers out there that possibly have that if they haven't been automatically switched over to the smart meter. But if the correct answer, if you get solar in New Brunswick and you're connected to the grid, you need to have that smart meter. So Matthew, I'm sure I pay taxes on electricity I use from MB Power, even if it is from the credit you accumulated with them. Yes, that is correct. I think we may have, I hope I never created any confusion there. So yeah, when you send it to them, but you're not taxed on that power that you made. If you're pulling power from MB Power, I'll use a t-shirt analogy. If I buy a t-shirt at the mall and it was $19 and then I paid my tax on it, so say $23, I get it home and guess what? It doesn't fit anymore. So I take it back to the mall and I give it back to them and they give me my tax back, right? MB Power would say, okay, you gave us the t-shirt back. That's a different t-shirt. You used that t-shirt. That's a different one. And those electrons that you're buying back from us are different ones as well. So anytime that you pull from that grid, they're taxing you on it. But whether it was yours or not, it doesn't, they're saying it's a different one. Different electron, we'll call it. Excuse me. So time-based billing, we went over that. We went over explanation of net metering, how it works in the context of solar energy. Maybe I'll take a quick second and we'll talk about the different solar systems. I do want to talk about defense and offense because there's a lot of things that most people should be doing before they look at solar energy. And I just want to explain that. So let's do that first, and then we'll talk about the different types of solar energy. So defense before offense. Typically what I do is I'll design a solar system for somebody and then I'll send it to them and I'll say, this is how much energy you could produce, this is how much it would cost, and I give them a proposal, and then I follow up with a site visit. And what I do on a site visit is I pretend that I own your house, and I'll go into a house and I'll look around and I'll look. Obviously, I'm there to measure your roof, and I want to look at your electrical, and I want to see if solar makes sense here. But sometimes I'll get into a house, and I was in one last week in the Nakwik area. Excuse me. And I know I have no reason to be in the basement because solar panels typically want to go on a roof or a ground mount. But I was down there looking at the electrical panel, and the basement walls were not insulated. And there was oil heat, and there may have been some baseboard heat, and a lot of different things. And she just wanted to get rid of her power bill. A lot of people say, look, I just want to get rid of my power bill. How much solar do I need? Someone calls me with $1,000 a month power bill, and I've had this happen many times. I need solar. I got $1,000 a month power bill. How much solar do I need? I'm doing it. Well, you're gonna make your backyard look like Dubai. It's a lot. But the best option is to go on the defense first before you go and try to create a bunch of, to go on the offense and create a bunch of electricity to offset these other things that it's always better to conserve first. And there are solar companies out there that do not care. They just want to sell as much solar as they possibly can. And I always tell people, I'm trying to sell you less solar. I know it sounds weird, but that is what I would do in your situation. So I get to this place, there's holes in the bucket. The heat's just going outside. There's programs out there to get rid of the oil. There's programs out there to insulate the basement, the sills, attic insulation. If you want to change a window, it's all covered under the Greener Homes loan. You can borrow up to $40,000 to do energy efficient upgrades, and we'll talk about that loan shortly. But it's also incentivized through NB Power, even though it's not actually NB Power. It's just we use NB Power as the vehicle to run the old Efficiency New Brunswick program, and through the province will pay. They will incentivize solar up to $3,000, but they will also pay up to $15,000 to take out that oil heater, and they will pay you to put heat pumps in. They will pay you to insulate your basement. They will pay you to add insulation to your attic. And guess what this does? If you break it down and do the math on things, there's a better ROI out there than solar panels. Well, crap, I'm in the wrong business now, aren't I? Not true. If you look at the estimate thing, I'm actually asked people if they're interested in these things, because what I've learned is when I'm going to these places that I'm recommending other people's products all the time. So I do partner with those and who can get us on the right track and get these defenses taken care of. And some of you may have seen my video the other day about how to save money really fast. And the truth is, the first thing everybody should do, and we're going way off topic now, but we're doing what Rudy would do. The first thing you could do is call the cell phone company, call your internet company, call your car insurance, call your home insurance, call Netflix, call Spotify, call everybody that's leaking water out of your bucket, water being money. There's going to be an awesome video on this come out later. But that's the fastest way you can save money, because anyone who's got their fingers in your bank account, including NB Power, because they're on there too, that's the fastest way you can save some money. Super off topic, but guess what is smarter than solar? I'm going the wrong way here. If you want to save $50 a month, pick up the phone tomorrow, spend an entire day, take a sick day, do whatever, start calling around and find out, hey, I'm paying too much for crap. And then we'll look at other things. If you're running baseboard heat in your mini home, put a heat pump in first. You're going to get your heating costs down like a third or a half. And the biggest things in homes for the reason your power bills are high is space heating and hot water. And your hot water is pretty much proportional on how many kids are in your house or how often people shower. So anyway, I got a little bit ranty there, but that is what I would do. So when I get into a house, I look at these things and I make recommendations. And I'm going to talk about the home energy audit, and I'm going to talk about incentives which are available through the Greener Homes loan, and also there's some incentives. So on any solar project, almost every solar project, I try to steer people who are residents and who it's their primary home, it's not a cottage, it's not a camp, to the Greener Homes loan. And the Greener Homes loan is a federal program. We thought it was going away this year. It got topped up. It should float us to the next budget. But it's a loan that's available to all Canadians who, for their primary residence, no matter how much money you make or how much money you don't make. It's what do they call it? OAC, unapproved. You car loan people will know what that is. Unapproved credit. It's a $40,000 interest-free loan that is provided by the federal government, and it's for energy-efficient items: solar panels, heat pumps, green home type things. Get yourself off oil. There's a lot of incentives in there, and you can. It's not for renovations or anything like that, but unless it's improving. And it's a $40,000 10-year interest-free loan. So it's $40,000. You have to pay it back over 10 years. Well, guess what? I usually hate loans. I'm all about no payments on things. Try to get your monthly payments down. Just, you don't have to make a lot of money to be rich. Don't spend a lot. However, if you do these recommended items that are eligible for the Greener Homes loan, the savings from it will sometimes, and a lot of times, pay for that payment, and depending on what the upgrade is. So you don't feel it in your bank account, is what I'm saying. Solar especially don't feel it in the summertime. anyways, so that's available, and most of the solar customers are using it. Odd times we don't have customers that are, or we don't have people that use it, but they're guys who've got, income below what I'll ever have, or above, sorry, than what I'll ever have. So the Greener Homes loan is available. It's available for most of the solar customers are using it, but you can also use it for any of those defensive items that I mentioned earlier. So in order to get the Greener Homes loan, you have to have an energy audit. So an energy audit is awesome. I'm a big fan of them. And what it is, it's one of the first steps that you'll do if you want to do anything energy efficient related. If you're changing windows in your house, if you're going to change your heating source, even wood stove, I believe. No, sorry, I'm onto a different program. But if you're gonna do anything that's eligible on that Greener Homes loan, it has to have an energy audit. So what happens is there's 5 companies, I believe, in New Brunswick, and they dispatch a guy that comes out and he looks at your home and he'll measure the insulation in your attic. He will do a blower door test, so he'll suck all the air out of your house. He'll seal your front door, fires up this fan, sucks all the air out, and he figures out how many air exchanges per hour your house does, how leaky it is. And you'll get paid to tighten that up, by the way, on the Total Energy Savings Program, the provincial one. So I like this because it identifies some problems that I may not have seen if I'm there or if I'm not there. I recommend that everyone do it, even if they don't buy or do any upgrades. It just lets you know where you stand with your house. It's going to cost you $99. The audit companies will get paid more than that. It's a subsidized program, but it will give you a nice report at the end, which you have to have in order to apply for the loan. So if you don't have solar in your house, that'll be an eligible upgrade, is to do that loan. They check, they say, okay, there's no solar on this house, it's baseboard heat, there's no heat pump, and or whatever. And then when you go and do your upgrades, you do a post audit. So the post audit comes and he makes sure that the solar panels didn't end up on your camp, and they make sure that your heat pump was installed at that residence. And then they give you another report, and if you sealed up around your windows and stuff and made your house tighter, you actually are eligible for money for that. So you're getting paid to make upgrades to your house. You can borrow the money to make the upgrades. It should make your costs lower, and you use the savings to pay for the loan. So it's what's driving all these energy businesses. It's what's driving my business, and it just makes it available to people who, I don't have $40,000 in my bank account, or up to. Solar jobs don't usually cost that much. However, it's there, it's interest free, and it's not like you're going out and buying a $40,000 truck that, that payment, you're making that payment anyway. You're paying somebody indefinitely for that, or you can just pay once and then reap the savings indefinitely. So that's what's driving things. In conjunction with that, there is the provincial program which I spoke about. It's the Total Home Energy Savings Program. That's a corker. I don't know who at MB Power came up with that one, but it's a corker. Total Home Energy Savings Program. You can check that out with MB Power. They're paying $200 a kilowatt for solar. You can have up to $3,000 rebate. That does not go against your loan. It comes to you in a check form. Do as you wish with it. My estimates assume you put that against your loan. It would be smarter if you put that against a loan with interest. Pro tip, but that comes as a check form. You can get up to $3,000 for solar. There's money there for heat pumps. There's money there for heat pump water heaters, $550, I believe, for a heat pump water heater. And I know I'm creating a whole bunch of questions on what are these, like what's a heat pump water heater? I love them. We'll get to that. So there's provincial incentives, and they're unlocked using the energy audit as well. So step 1 is to get the energy audit done. You don't have to do any of the upgrades. You're going to be $99 in the hole to know where you stand. If you end up doing anything with the program and have a post audit and use those dollars, you'll actually be refunded the cost of the audit, because so that's all in there. So it's actually free if you go forward with anything. I had it done at my place just for the sake of seeing how tight a log home was, and I ended up using it. Actually, I ended up using at the time there was a Greener Homes grant in conjunction with the Greener Homes loan. I added an extra 5 kilowatts of solar to this place, and I walked away with an $8,000 check, which was kind of cool. So yeah, look at that. Thanks for putting that in there, Matthew. That's awesome. So I believe Matthew's a solar customer as well, but not mine. So if you end up getting solar from somebody else, I absolutely excited for you. I think you made the right choice, and I hope you agree that it's solar's the right move, and a lot of people just don't know about it, right? So if you have questions and you don't want to get them answered by some sales guy, because really I'm a sales guy, I hate that term, but talk to somebody who has solar already. They'll tell you exactly. I'm just scrolling back through a couple comments here. We're interested in solar, but we don't want them on the roof. Do you install them on the ground? We absolutely will, Angie. We've got 2 ground mounts half finished right now that started this week. Typically, I really just like doing 45-degree ground mounts in New Brunswick, because the steeper we get them, the less snow stays on them. They're screw piles, mounted on screw piles, and then we run a cord back to your house, bury it, and I have a ground mount here actually. My home has, the roof's not good for it. There's 12 valleys and 3 different pitches. It looked good in the magazine, but it turned out it wasn't that good for solar. So I've got a ground mount on my place. So there's typically 2 types of installs that we'll do: roof mount and ground mount. The ground mounts are going to cost you more money just because of the screw piles, the extra disconnects, the burying of the wire, excavation and stuff like that. However, long term, they're typically better. Like on the life of a system, which is, we say it's 30 years. I think it's much more than that. But just because we can orient them exactly where we want to put them. Some people's homes, like Henry's, who I was talking about earlier, I believe his is a 45-degree roof, pointed like right on the south. It's pretty much as fast as he's going to get his ROI. It costs us the same to put a solar panel on a roof, so you'll get a faster return on your investment if it's oriented where we want it to be, which is south. And so the ground mounts, yeah, we can point them exactly where we want usually. So they produce the most, but the capital, upfront capital is it's going to be paid back, right? So let's talk about a couple. I'll be really quick on this. All these systems I'm talking about are grid-tied systems with a smart meter or a net meter, which run power in both directions. You can share things with the grid. I live off-grid. Why do I live off-grid? Well, number 1, I'm weird. And number 2, I think it was more for independence. And number 3, I'm 3 kilometers from the nearest power line, and it would have cost me, I think it was like $100,000 at the time. And that bought a lot of solar equipment. Actually, I only spent $25,000 at the time for the solar equipment. And they don't bill me every month or ever. It's awesome. So there's 3 types of system. There's an off-grid system, and there's compromises to that. And on an off-grid system, there's things that I can't do. I have to manage my electricity just like a power company would. During the daytime, I heat my water because it comes straight from the solar power. I could heat from my battery. It's bad practice, but I manage my electricity in certain ways. It's completely automated. I don't think I could charge an electric vehicle here because I'm usually on the road during the day. So I need my vehicle to be home to charge it from the sun. The solution is 2 vehicles, and you just keep swapping them out, but that doesn't sound very smart. There's compromise. If the grid was going by my house, I would be hooked to it, and I would have my battery, and that would be called a hybrid system. So a hybrid system has a battery. It'll shelter you from power outages. If the power goes out, you can run your crucial loads, and depending on how you heat your water and space heat, you can run all of your loads off a battery. It's rare, but it's possible. And it allows you to use tax-free energy. You don't have to pull it. Like right now, we might have customers that are using their battery instead of the grid. I don't think I would recommend that at all. So, and then just a regular grid-tied system doesn't have any batteries. So that's your fastest return on your investment. If people in New Brunswick are looking to have solar primarily to save money, I always recommend no battery. Batteries are expensive, and they have a life. The batteries we're using now are 15-year warranty, and they don't add any ROI to that. You're not gonna. There's no money that's going to be saved unless you want to start counting generator fuel during an outage. So some places might have a 2-week outage a year, two weeks a year that they don't have electricity, and they might run a generator at $50 a day. So I guess you could calculate that in. But typical home, no battery. When the power goes out, even if it's in the daytime and it's sunny out, you will lose power. And that is because there's a device called a rapid shutdown. We don't want to energize the grid, and we don't want to energize your house and then have the clouds go over and then not be able to run certain things. So we have a device called a rapid shutdown. The power goes out. If you don't have a battery, you lose power. Power comes back on. You're making power. You're using it, self-consuming it, and the rest of it goes to the grid. You're right back in regular old mode. The hybrid system will have an ROI when we get time of use, because there's scenarios where having a battery will allow you to use the electricity that you created for free, or the electricity that you stored when it was cheap, and use that later. So I'll give you an example. I went to a trade show last year in California called RE Plus. It's like, I don't know if it's the world's, North America's biggest solar show. I got invited to that, went down to it. It's pretty cool. And I was kind of hoping to see like vehicle to grid stuff. I don't know, for you techie guys, you might know what that is. Basically, you can use the battery in your electric vehicle to float and tie in with your solar. I didn't see any of that, but what I saw was ESS everywhere. ESS, which stands for Energy Storage System. And everyone's pushing batteries. And I walked up to this guy at his booth, and he's like, this battery will pay for itself in 2 years. And I'm from little old New Brunswick over here where there's trees. And of course, I challenged him. I was like, well, I don't, the batteries don't make sense and for an ROI. And what happens is their power in the afternoons in California is 10 cents a kilowatt hour. At nighttime, as soon as supper time hits, from 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock, it's 90 cents a kilowatt hour. American. Like, that's a lot of money. That's a huge difference. So what they're doing down there is they just have a battery and they store their energy in the afternoon when it's cheap, and then 5 o'clock hits, it's smart enough to say, okay, we're going to pull from the battery until it's down to, say, 10%, and we're going to use that cheap electricity, and we're going to save 80 cents a kilowatt hour with that battery. And then you don't even need solar to get that ROI. So I was defeated and educated, and here I am telling New Brunswick about it. Anyways, our electricity rate in New Brunswick right now is the same the whole way through. So that doesn't really make sense here. Is it going to make sense? Yes, I believe it is going to make sense. St. John Energy's kind of there because with solar that makes more sense. But anyway, they're trying to incentivize or coerce or whatever you want to call it to people to use less electricity when it's expensive. Why is it more expensive for the power companies at certain times of the day? We're going back to where I started. Sorry. It's more expensive because at nighttime we use all the electricity that our generators are creating, especially when we have Point Lepreau shut down and Mactaquac Dam's hardly flowing any water or whatever. So guess where we get our electricity from? We buy it from somebody who has it. And Quebec might have it because their dams are flowing, or New England might want to export it to us. So if you look at the report with MB Power, you can see how much power we exported and how much we imported. So we're doing the same thing to them. We're typically exporting when we have surplus, and we don't usually have surplus unless Lepreau is running. When Lepreau is running, we can cash in, but the duty cycle on that thing is like, it's not good. It's like a lazy cat. It doesn't work much. When it does work, it works well. So if we're buying electricity, if one of you guys is in St. John and it's a cold day and you're going down there and you see the 2 smokestacks at Coulson Cove are going, we are bleeding money. It's costing MB Power, the last I heard, is like 50 cents a kilowatt hour to create it, and they're selling it back to us at 16 cents a kilowatt hour. So guess what that's doing to the debt? So we don't run Coulson Cove, but it's there if we need it. So will you run it in order to keep the power on? Yep, you will. Because, we'd rather go in debt than leave New Brunswickers with frozen pipes. So I'm on a bunny trail. I don't even know how I got here. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. So I'm just reading a couple things here. I currently pay 15 cents a kilowatt hour. How much does NB Power credit you per kilowatt hour? It's the same, Andrew. I keep saying 16 cents, and I believe it's because I'm adding the tax to the kilowatt hour and rounding it to the 16 cents. So it might be 15.8. So 15 and an eighth of a cent. How much does it cost to install the metering equipment to sell the NB Power? That's free. To install a smart meter, NB Power is doing that anyway. They have a third-party company that's rolling it out across the province. Fredericton area, almost everyone has it done. If you go into Dieppe, it's kind of spotty. Bathurst, I don't believe anybody has them unless they get require one. So we've done some solar jobs in Bathurst, and part of getting the net metering approved is to have the smart meter installed so we can get bi-directional power. If we install solar on a meter that is not bi-directional, it's not a smart meter and it's not a bi-directional meter, it actually charges you for the power that you send back to the grid. So your meter just goes faster in the same direction. So that's a bad deal. You don't want that. Okay, I'm going to try to follow my script here. We're not doing very good, but the viewers are holding on and adding to it. So we talked about the grid-tied system, hybrid and off-grid. Off-grid is typically for camps or people who are hiding from the government. Just kidding. People who want to be independent. It's take care of your space heating and your water heating. Off-grid's actually pretty easy. I live here in this home. It's a large home. We have 4 boys who live here, age 7 to 15. I had to think about that. And my wife and I. And we do need a generator. Last time I had a generator running was the first week of January. So there's times when we just don't have sun. There's just no sun, and the grid would help us with that, of course. But we manage things quite well. We have all the amenities that anyone else could have. We have a microwave, we have electric fridge, electric freezer, gas cooktop, dishwasher. I even run a hot tub. The hot tub is not heated with electricity. It will be in the summer here shortly. I'm going to be doing a heat pump water heater on it and then just have it run when we have extra sun. So it might not be 104 degrees all the time, but we're going to do that because I do not want to burn propane. The only thing we burn propane for in this house is the cooktop. But yeah, there's ways of doing things, and we burn a lot of firewood. That's my main heat is firewood, soon to be wood pellets. Anyway, that's a little blurb on off-grid stuff, and we do off-grid systems as well. Some of the contractors that I work with, I have certain ones that I'll pick for off-grid stuff because they're more experienced in it, and I guess that would be me and a lot of them. But I always do the designs and stuff, and it just really interests me. I love that stuff. I love load balancing and demand, taking care of loads at certain times of the day and all that stuff. For the typical house and for my favorite customers, I'd rather not do off-grid. That does make the phone ring a little bit more. So Kyle Mitchell wants to know if he can microwave his French fries with solar or does he use too much power. Yes, you can, but when you eat them, you need to wear sunglasses, Kyle, because it's the solar photons are different, and it's kind of like if you microwave them with nuclear power. You might want to wear special gloves. Kyle's a joker. He lives up the road and he's going to get solar someday. Okay, we did talk about the installation process. We talked about defense versus offense, which is something I really wanted to talk about. I'm going to post the 6 steps to solar. There's a lot of steps with the solar installation process with inspections and electrical permitting and stuff like that. There's we have to have a permit pull. We have to have a net metering application. There's a lot of that stuff. I do simplify it. I do have a PDF that maybe it'll pop up here in the comments. That would be beneficial. It just kind of shows you guys what the steps to getting solar is. So the first thing, I've got a few notes here. The energy audit, that's the first step to anything. If somebody wants solar, I can't just install it for them tomorrow. I want you to use the programs that are out there. I want you to use the interest-free loan, and I want you to be able to be eligible for the provincial programs through the Total Home Energy Savings Program. Everything hinges on the energy audit. So the first thing to do is get the energy audit. You can start that by you can do it yourself by going to MB Power's Total Home Energy Savings Program website, and somebody posted it on the comment section. Appreciate that. And you can choose an auditor. There's 5 of them on there. Are You Green, HomeSol, Enercheck, ThermalWise. We don't know what the other one is. Can you tell which ones my favorites are? There are certain ones that are faster, and I have a preference because they can get the audit done quicker. Because every day, what happens is customers realize that, hey, I missed out on $20 to $30 a sun today. Every day, I'm losing $20 to $30 I could be saving, and they try to get the energy audits done really quick. And I understand the urgency behind that. So thanks for posting that. There's the 6 steps to solar guide right there. So energy audit first. Once you have the energy audit, there's a file number on it, and then you can go to the Greener Homes loan website and you use that file number, and then it'll ask you all those questions that the bank asks you when you try to get a credit card. They're doing a credit check on you. They want to know how much you make and all this. They just want to make sure that you're able to pay that back, even though you should be able to pay it back because you're saving the money that you're going to use to pay for it, but you're only going to pay for it for that 10 years, and then the rest is gravy. So once a customer or potential customer, I will give them an audit, an estimate in between there, and I'll post the link to that too if you're interested in an energy proposal. I just whip those up. I do a design based on what I see with your house. I look and and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I can send you proposals anytime, so you can see what the savings would look like versus your power bill and stuff, and over time. But once you have the loan approved, they'll send you an email. Then we do net metering application with MB Power. So we put the design on there, single line diagram overview. They check to make sure it's all CSA approved gear. They want to make sure we know what we're doing, because there's a lot of players out there that might not. So they're kind of looking out for the customer, which I really appreciate. Sarah Kane and Melanie Ryan, if you're watching this, they're awesome. They do a really good job. Melanie really looks out for the customers. She's actually a customer of mine. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but she really looks out for the customers because she'll actually check your power bill versus what I've proposed and make sure that I'm not putting too much solar on that you're not going to benefit from. So I really appreciate it. It's a little service that MB Power does, and these girls understand solar, and they really have a heart for the customer. So they work for MB Power, they work for us, and they're awesome at it. And they've made some big improvements in the last year. I harped on them hard, not them, but the programs and stuff, and I learned a bit about it and had some meetings with some higher ups, and they made improvements, and I'm super proud that they were able to do that, and made good. It was great for the industry. So electrical permits, net metering. There's structural engineering that we do on the jobs. We look at your roof structure, if it's in a roof, if it's a ground mount, it's pre-engineered ground mounts that we use, and then in conjunction with the screw pile guys, there's engineering reports, and we want to make sure that we've designed it so it's not going to blow away in the next hurricane. The installation, there's an inspection after. Technical services in New Brunswick, they come and they inspect the jobs that we've done, even though they don't know ladders. I'm working on that one. My apologies to everybody who pays the inspectors in New Brunswick to inspect solar jobs and do not own a ladder. I had a meeting with the public safety minister about this. Maybe he's watching this. We're constantly trying to make improvements for public safety and to make the process easier for people and safer and streamlined and whatnot. Smart meter gets installed along there, and once your inspection is complete, an email gets sent to MB Power. MB Power says, "Congratulations, you don't need us anymore." No, they don't. They don't say that. Congratulations, you can turn on your system and start saving money. So, one thing I want to talk about. I've got 2 little notes left. Excuse me. I spoke earlier about how solar does not help the power company at all, and I'll try to explain this. Obviously we have good programs in place. The Premier seems to really have a heart for customers. She's taken the MB Power and the high power bill and the smart meter potential problems. There aren't any. I don't think there are any, but there was an audit. She's doing an audit and stuff, and she's hearing the people's voices about high power bills, and I'm hoping that we have some type of beefed up program through the province in order to help us with our power bills, because NB Power is the only option out there, and solar is one of the only options that we can do to combat that, short of not buying as much electricity. Excuse me. So that said, where was I going with this? From a utility point of view, us customers are able to send power back and forth with the utility at our leisure, at our convenience. If I own that power company, now my customers decided that, hey, we have our own generators that we can run, and we're actually using government money to purchase them, and we're just going to buy electricity whenever it's convenient for us. So today, out of those 15,000 solar panels that we've installed, or more, I don't even know what it is now, it's a lot, nobody bought electricity from NB Power this afternoon. But the generators are there, and they might be running on idle. Anyways, and then tomorrow, I don't know when it's going to rain next, but let's say it's going to rain all day tomorrow. It's going to be really dark and dreary day, because solar panels still make a lot of electricity even when it's overcast. But let's say it's going to be a snowstorm. Now everybody's solar panels are covered. We're not making any power. Well, guess what? The utility still has to generate that electricity somehow. So we can't just get rid of generators, because we need them for when the solar guys can't make their own power anymore. So from a utility point of view, the solar guys kind of suck. And NB Power kind of disagreed with me on this, but I just put it in their point of view. There's times in this province when we make no power, and I see it because I'm off grid. And there might be a time when I get 4 days in a row and I have to start a generator. I still have to own that generator. So from the point of view of the customer, of the utility, solar really isn't helping what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell electricity and make money when they sell the electricity. They're trying to run it like a business, and in that case, we're buying electricity from them when it's convenient for us, and when we need it, we're buying it, and they have to supply it. So what would batteries do if we incentivized the batteries instead of solar in the province? That would allow us to purchase, and they're doing this in Nova Scotia right now, demand response it's called. If you have a battery, you can sign up to their programs, and they will purchase kilowatt hours from you exactly when they need it. You don't have to spool up a generator, you don't have to fire up a nuclear plant, or you don't have to start up Coulson Cove. You can get instantaneous power from the batteries. And if you have a whole street and everybody has a battery on it, and they need the power, they're buying the electricity from these customers exactly when they need it, which is mostly during peak times, and they're getting them crazy credits for this. The customers are, who own batteries. We don't have that in New Brunswick right now. I think in the next 10 years we're going to see it. I think we're going to see batteries incentivized. If every house in this province had a battery, we could probably lower our generators. We won't need as many generators. We don't have to maintain as many generators as a utility, and we can just pull from those when we need, give the credit to the customer. It's cheaper to buy from a customer at a premium rate than to go and purchase from, say, Quebec or somebody like that when we need it. It just beats the peak. There was a program NB Power had probably 10 or 15 years ago called Beat the Peak, where they're trying to just create one base load. That's the best way for utility to make money. These peaks and demands and all that doesn't make sense. Combine that with solar, battery, solar, hybrid system. Man, you've got a pretty slick system going there, and allow them to purchase from your battery and see what percentage your battery is at any given time. Vehicle to grid, something I mentioned earlier, and I know I'm getting like way off topic, futuristic stuff, but it's coming and I'm excited for it. So I'm going to talk about it anyways. A typical home battery is 15 kilowatt hours, and they're about 300 pounds, and I think that's why they're 15 kilowatt hours. So each battery, it's like a typical off-grid home would just use one or two of those. 15 kilowatt hours. I mentioned the F-150 earlier. An F-150 long range is 135 kilowatt hours. And guess what? It's sitting in your yard, charged. Potential power available for purchase or for use in your house. That's going to come. Why would we buy home batteries when we have one sitting there on wheels? So, just some thoughts from me. Anyway, very interesting. Okay, thank you, Sandra. That's a good compliment. Sometimes I'm just talking to myself. I'm going to answer some questions on here. I do have a section that's coming up for question and answers. I was going to talk about snow, shading, winter months, roof life, and roof materials. But first I'll answer a few questions. So Helen asked if she could start with grid tied and add batteries later. Absolutely you can. There's different types of systems that people are selling. There's microinverted systems, there's string inverted systems, and there's DC optimized systems. And I'm getting a little bit technical. Certain companies, a lot of them will only do microinverters, so they actually invert. A solar panel makes DC power, which is direct current, and we use in our home AC current, 120 or 240. An inverter chain, which is a component of a solar system that allows us to use that electricity. All batteries store electricity and DC power. So when I design systems, I almost all the time try to keep it DC power all the way to the house, because I believe in the future we're going to be incentivized to have batteries. But I also think that if you want to add a battery later, like Helen asked about, that we need to have that DC power there. So keeping this in mind, we want to don't do microinverters because you're going to convert it twice. We want to keep DC power to the house. And if you want to add a battery to a system later, yes, you can do it. I'm just realizing how technical I'm getting with you guys, and I apologize for that. If the inverter would have to change, so from a typical string inverter, you might lose 1,000 or 2 by switching your inverter to a hybrid inverter. Some customers will opt to put a hybrid inverter in. We've got a system going in Fredericton at MB Power Guy's place, and he's putting a hybrid inverter in without the battery because maybe he knows something because he works for MB Power. But he wants to put the battery in later, but at least he'll have the inverter there and it's not going to cost him any money. So we can do a hybrid inverter with no battery. It's just a bit more money. And yes, we can do that. That was a really long answer. My apologies. I'm just going to scroll back through. Thanks for the shout out there, Pat. Pat's one of my favorite customers, and I have to come and visit him sometime because I promised him some things that I haven't given him yet. Anyways, a kilowatt's a unit of power. Yeah, so thanks for that, Matthew. So a kilowatt hour is something that I think that everybody who has a power bill should know what it is. Everyone who has a power bill doesn't know how many kilowatt hours they use in a month, but they all know how many dollars that they spent in a month and what their power bill was. I'm trying to get the province to listen to me and MB Power to listen to me about how to create some energy literacy around this by using, say, energy monitors. So a kilowatt hour is, let's say this Keurig machine that's sitting right beside me uses 1,000 watts. If I ran that thing for 1 hour, which you never would, but if I did, I would use 1 kilowatt hour and it would cost me 15.8 cents. Doesn't sound like much, right? A water heater will use maximum 6.5 kilowatts, and if I ran a water heater for an hour, it's 6.5 kilowatt hours in 1 hour. So 6.5 times, we'll say 16 cents, because let's be honest, it's going to be north of that real soon. Every time the power bill goes up, or every time the power rates go up, I apologize for getting excited. It's really good for business. So I want to talk about energy monitors for a second, because I should have talked about that when I was talking about defense before offense. So another thing that the smart meters are supposed to do is give you an instantaneous readout of how much electricity you're using at that moment. And it does not do that. It will give you information on a moment from 3 days ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have a power bill. They may have changed this in the last week. I'm not sure. So you're supposed to be able to look at an app which I know it doesn't exist yet, and see how much power I'm using, how many dollars per hour I'm using, and you're supposed to be able to go and turn off something and see how much that would have cost you. That has not happened. The smart meter's been out for a long time. Talk is cheap. Hasn't happened yet. It needs to happen. But that will only give you electricity at the whole house level. So what an energy monitor does, it measures electricity instantaneous, and you can put it on different circuits in your house. It's a little clamp that goes inside your meter, and you can clamp each, we'll say the water heater, you can clamp your water pump, you can clamp your hot tub, you can clamp your electric cars. I always try to get the big hitters, the 240 ones. And it's a third-party device, and it clamps onto your mains, which come in from the outside, and it'll tell you how much money your water heater has cost you this month, or this day, or this at this moment. It's that precise. And I think they're absolutely awesome, because people who have energy monitors know where their money's going. So when I get a customer that calls me and they're like, oh, I got a $400 a month power bill or a $1,000 a month power bill, the first thing I want to do is get an energy monitor in there. We got to find out where your power's going. I had a customer, this commercial customer, but $6,000 a month. The energy monitors are installed, are costing $500. I think it pays for itself faster than anything, because it gives people the insight of where their money's going. It comes to a dollar amount, and it'll give you warnings if things are running for too long, and it'll just give you that history. I'm able to reconcile the data from energy monitors with the smart meters and with the inverters that we install for solar, and we can kind of check everything, reconcile it all with itself to see. That's how we kind of know that that the smart meters are on point. Unless the energy monitors and the smart meters are in cahoots, which they aren't, because MB Power's got nothing to do with the energy monitors. I've proposed that we put energy monitors in every single house that has a power bill, and allow people to see where their money's going. And people will be less upset about why their power bills are high, because they'll know where their power's going, and they can't just blame MB Power for this. I think it would be a great win for MB Power, because their PR is an absolute train wreck. I think it would be great for the customers. I think it would be great for students. I think they should teach this in schools. I think people should understand that running a water heater or charging an electric vehicle is the same as running 130 houses, or the on-demand hot water, what that does to the grid. Like, there's just a plethora of education that can come with that. So energy monitors are excellent. I wish everyone would have one. They are a little expensive, and it does suck when you have a big power bill to spend more money to find out where your money is going. But it's just it's data, and it's knowledge is power. So energy monitors, you'll see that on my estimate form if that's something you're interested in. I want to have guys out installing them. I do them. We have to be an electrician. I slap my fingers, because you can't apparently put a clamp on a wire without being an electrician anymore. And you can't inspect solar jobs without ladders too. So can you feel my pain there? Anyways, energy monitors are awesome. I wish that more people knew about them. And another thing I want to talk about too, on the defensive side, heat pump water heaters. Everyone knows what a water heater is. It's electric elements in the water, and you use your hot water. You use your hot water, and the cold water comes in the bottom of the tank, and the elements heat it, and it stores it there. There's a device called a heat pump water heater. It's not well known in New Brunswick. It is incentivized under the Total Home Energy Savings Program. They're really big in Maine. It's a water tank. Still has an element in the bottom of it, because most of them are hybrid. However, on the upper end of the tank, there is a heat pump. And what the heat pump does is it takes the heat from around the heat pump water heater, and it puts it in your water tank. It also dehumidifies the space that it's around, and it cools the space. So on days like today, where it was really hot, we just ran an air conditioner, took the heat out of your house, cooled the house, dehumidified the basement, because you're running a dehumidifier beside it, and then we put we made your water hot. And it used a quarter of the energy that a regular one would have used, and it replaced 2 more devices. It replaced your air conditioning, and it replaced your dehumidifier. They are awesome, and they are something that I have guys who install, and they pay for themselves faster when you use more hot water. You get some kids in hockey, some stinky kids. The more you use your hot water, the more it'll save. And if it's dire straits, they're not as fast the recovery. But if you're needing that hot water, there is an element in the bottom. It's only one element, so it only uses half the power of a typical element water heater. It'll fire that thing up and it'll crank on it. So I actually use a heat pump water heater here when the sun's out to heat my water for the 4 kids and my wife. And it's a 90-gallon one. It only uses 500 watts versus 6,500 watts. And it runs all day. When the sun's out, it never heats off the battery. I've got it on a relay and a little smart system that I use. And it does all the hot water in this house. And we do it off grid, which would never have been possible with a regular water heater because my inverter is only 6 kilowatt. So it's awesome. I'm going to be using one on my hot tub. I'm actually going to add a second hot water heat pump water heater to run in tandem because we've got the power. I can't send it back to the grid, but they're an awesome device. Downsides of the heat pump water heater. The upside is it takes the heat out of your house, puts it in your water tank. Great in the summertime. Guess what it does in the wintertime? Takes the heat out of your house, puts it in your water tank. Well, then you got to heat that space again. So how are you heating the space? Wood stove, heat pump. Overall, those heat pump water heaters are highly, like, everyone who has them loves them. And I was kind of hoping some of my customers on here would speak about them because you can see them on your power bill when you get a heat pump water heater down to that level. It's just instant on there. So that, if you're using a lot of hot water, might be a smarter choice compared to solar. Solar is always a good choice, but there's certain things that might have a faster payback, right? Snow and shading. Solar panels will work in the clouds. On a rainy day, you might only make 25%. On a really rainy day or a snowy day, there's snow on your panels, they're not going to produce electricity. On a net metered customer, I usually don't recommend that they scrape them off. And just because it's kind of like parking a black car after a snowstorm in the sun. As soon as the sun gets to that black, it just kind of melts it away. Depending on the temperatures, of course. So yeah, they don't produce electricity if they're covered in snow. They work on cloudy days. They'll work on rainy days. They work best when it's sunny and when it's cold. If you get a 45-degree day, it's a 35-degree day, let's be realistic, and it's really sunny and hot, you're like, oh, I'm making some big power today. You actually aren't. They're actually running maybe at like 20% less. Electricity hates the heat. The best production days are going to be like March, a sunny day where it's reflecting off the sun and it's cold, minus 20. You make way more power than what your panels are even rated for. So roof life, if you're putting a solar array on your roof and it's a shingled roof, it's actually creating shade over top your roof and extends the life of your shingles. So that's a perk to it. Obviously, we want to have a good roof to work with beforehand. We don't want to do lift the panels up, put a roof on, and then put the panels back on again 2 years later. Not cool. Guys will do that. Not cool. Costs the customer a lot of money. You need to have electricians there in order to do that. We can install on steel roofs. We can install on shingled roofs. Some of the roofs out there's like a clay tile style. There are mounts available for that we will do, but they cost a little more dollars. So anyways, I am going to switch. I got another set of notes here, and I'm going to encourage you guys to ask some questions in the comment section. I've been an hour and 20 minutes, and I think I've covered everything that I want to. I always make notes and I end up talking about it anyway, which is awesome. So if you want to fire off some questions in there, that would be great. Or maybe I can sift back through them. That would be cool. There's lots, probably more to be said about it. I know I'll get into some of the technicals. I'll talk, while you guys are putting your questions in there, I'm just going to talk about what I do and how I operate, I guess. If you're interested in solar, there's going to be a link, and you can go to eastcoastsun.ca, and then there's a get an estimate. And if you fill out that form, I'm not even going to call you. What I do is I use a system that I actually teach on. It's called Open Solar, and a lot of other solar companies will use it as well, and that's kind of what I do on the consulting side of the business is I'll teach them how to use that, and I'll find your home. I'll ask you to guess your power bill, or if you know exactly what it is, that would be great, because I'm trying to create a system that doesn't overproduce. And if you're talking about getting a hot tub in the future or an electric car, that would be good to know. If you have 2 teenagers that are moving out in the next year, that would be good to know. Your power bill is going to go down. Congratulations. Defense before offense. Kick the kids out. And I try to collect that information from you, and then I'll find your home, and I'll use GeoMB, and I'll use Google Street View, and I'll get right creepy, and I'll try to understand what if there's trees in the way, and I'll try to figure out what size your roof is, and I'll do my best to design a system either on your roof or do a ground mount, depending on what you're interested in. I can do multiple systems, and then you can compare them. It'll show you how much electricity that you should save relative to your power bill. It'll show you your bill before and your bill after. It'll show you your monthly payments. It will include the incentives in there. And I just send that proposal off to you. It goes via email. It'll come with a little write-up, and it will talk about. I should talk about financing too. Anyway, it just gives you a proposal. If you're sticker shocked, it gets rid of that. And people are probably wondering how much does this stuff cost. The typical solar job that I do is between $20,000 and $40,000. Bigger houses are even north of that. So like I'm talking big houses. But the typical one, like a typical bungalow, it's around 26 to 32. We'll say no battery, just ROI. And typically customers are spending $20 to $40 extra a month for 10 years, and then once it's paid for after the interest-free loan is done, it's gravy. So that's probably going to be one of the questions in here. So I'll design a system for you. I'll send it to you. It'll be a web-based link, and you can look at it. And then there's an option to accept a proposal. Some customers do that. All that really does is tells me, hey, I'm serious, and then I follow up with you. Or you can send an email to me, and then with some more questions, and I'll just go back and forth on email. If you're serious, I come to your house, and I like to verify what I designed. 90% of the time, I end up changing the solar panels. So I'll climb on your roof, and I'll measure from your peak to your valley, or I'll look at your home, and I'll measure and see how much tech cable we need to run out to a ground mount, and I'll look at your electrical panel, and I'm just looking for surprises, and I'm looking at the structure of your roof, and I'm peeking my head in the attic. I'm taking some pictures of that for the structural engineer, and then I'll refine that estimate, and I'll send it back to you and say, this is what we would do, this is going to be the price. And usually the pricing doesn't change. The size of the panel might, because I'm trying to maximize the space on your roof. So sometimes I'll do 3 rows of smaller panels, sometimes I'll do 2 rows of larger panels. I could talk about bifacial panels too. Do you know there's solar panels that produce on both sides? We're using them everywhere now, especially on ground mounts. It's a big game changer on the ground mounts. Just a little thought that came into my head. Okay, I'm going to read some of the questions here. Lori, what is the typical lifespan of a solar panel system? The solar panels are typically warranted for 27 to 30 years. That's a production warranty, which means at the end of, say, 30 years, they're guaranteeing it's making 80% of its electricity at the end of that year. I personally have never seen solar panels degrade in my solar career, which has been like 20 years. And I went to California and I went to Florida this year, and I saw the solar panels there, and I understand why we have degradation in warranties. It's because down there they look like headlights on an old car, and I think it's their weather, it's the heat, it's the sand, and we just don't see that up here. I took a solar array down because I didn't even need to. I was just incentivized to upgrade it. They were 7.6 kilowatts of array I had, and it was still making 9 kilowatts last year, and it was 15 years old. So how long does a solar panel last? I don't know. They're warranted for 30 years. They're still, everything I've installed is still producing what it should have. The inverters have a 10-year warranty on them with the option to buy 25. I don't recommend that you buy the extended warranty. I don't see enough failures. I've had 3 or 4 inverters, string inverters, fail in my career. All been under the warranty period, and everyone that I've dealt with has been absolutely excellent in that. Microinverters and DC optimizers have a higher failure rate. Not a fan of them. Most of the time they're not necessary. Some of the companies out there putting DC optimizers on everything, it does not make sense. It's like an 85-year payback on some of that stuff. There's some videos on my YouTube channel that you can watch, and I kind of talk about that. And I hope to be more active online too, and just kind of share this knowledge, because sometimes people will find my videos and I just don't have to answer the questions as much in the future. So lifespan of a system, yeah, the panels, we'll say 30 years. When I do your estimates, I have a 30-year lifespan on the entire system, but I don't really know what they are. I've seen broken solar panels, but it's because we break them when we're installing them. Never seen a solar panel stop working in the wild. Preston, do you pay tax on the power you produce for your own use with solar? So yeah, I touched on that earlier. If you're producing the power in the daytime, you're self-consuming it first. There's no way for you to, for anybody to see that you use that. It doesn't go through the meter. You use it internally, and then when you send it back out to the grid, the extra goes from there. The only time you pay tax is on the power that you use from MB Power. So right now, if you're on MB Power, which you probably are, and you did have solar, you're paying tax, which is only 5%. On the power that you're pulling from the grid. You can put the power back the next day, but they're not going to give you that tax back. So at the end of the month, you're going to have a small tax bill. And I don't know if Henry's still tuned in here, if he fell asleep, or Pat Robichaux. You guys will know what your tax bills are. It could be $5 or $10. And the service fee, you can't get rid of either, and you can't get rid of the tax on the service fee. So you have a service fee with tax on it. The electricity that you pulled from night and cloudy days, tax on that. If you rent a water heater, you can't offset that. Dusk to dawn light, you can't offset that. Green Generalink that NB Power rents, you can't offset that. You can only offset the actual electricity usage on that bill. I saw some guys, their $0 bills are like around $44, I think is what Henry said there. Peter Jones, can a person install the panels themselves to help on the cost? Yep, they absolutely can. I have a few customers that watched my last webinar and did it. They'd be good ones to talk to, because they typically will say, I didn't save any money. And I know you're going to say, oh, of course you're going to say that. There's a lot to it in the background. The inspectors are really hard on them. There's a lot of things that people need to know. I don't want to spend time consulting for people who are trying to do it themselves. That's kind of why I have a business. There are things like, there's a certain pound rating that you have to have on the cable ties that you use. You have to be an electrician to plug 2 solar panels in together now, which I kind of disagree with that rule. You need to have an electrical contractor to pull the permit. The electrical contractor needs to know what they're doing. There's a lot of rules around it. There's disconnects that have to be in certain places, close to the meter. There's certain things that you have to use. There's stringing. Like there's a lot to it that I'm not talking about. I'm trying to keep it simple for you guys. The answer to your question is yes. They can do that if you have an electrical contractor who's competent. But technically, as a homeowner, you're not even allowed to plug 2 of the electrical generators in together to each other. So sometimes the kids are coming back home. Josie says, you're right. Those are called boomerangs. I was a boomerang kid. I came back home just for a little bit, though. So yeah, you have provision for that. Okay. More questions. We have bifacial solar panels. Cool. You must have a newer system, because I know they only come out in the last probably 5 or 6 years, bifacials. Any other questions? Maybe I'm missing some on here. I've been doing a lot of talking. I'm going to have a little drink. Phil's getting a storm. I think you're in Ontario, Phil, and I see your comments from earlier, so I'd like to check that too. So I'm going to have a little drink, and then if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask it on there. Speaking of boomerang kids, there's a couple kids rolling in right now. I told them to be really quiet. Yeah, so, maybe I should do an ask. My power bill this month is $54. $17 was HST and $30. Okay, thanks, Pat. Appreciate that. Pat's awesome. We were talking about Pat earlier. I own a flight. We went flying before, and Pat's an aviation buff, and I happen to fly a little bit, and I promised him a ride of Moncton next time I'm there. So, yes. So if you're interested in heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, energy monitors, solar arrays, and another thing that we end up doing alongside of solar a lot of times is a EV plug, so a fast electric car charger like a 50 amp, because we're into electrical anyway. If you go to East Coast Sun, you can eastcoastsun.ca. There's a place. There's some information on the site. But there's also a place called Estimates. Just fill out that, and if you're interested in solar, or interested in me sending you a proposal, I can do that. And if you're interested in any of those defensive items, you can choose that too, and I can help you with that. So I just learned that I'm constantly selling other people's products, and it was something I knew I needed to add to my repertoire, because I think it's important. It's things that I would do right in my home. So yeah, so there's no more questions on here. We're down to 34 viewers, and I appreciate you guys all tuning in, and I want to do this more often in the future, and I should. I enjoy it. I also want to do a YouTube series on maybe like a 10 video introduction to solar. It just helps with educating customers, and it just saves answering a lot of questions as well. So anyways, I appreciate you guys tuning in. If there's no more questions, I'll give it till 10:35 Eastern Standard Time, Atlantic Time, and then if there's no questions, then we'll go from there. So yeah, and if you are watching this later, which most people who watch it will be watching it later, you can add the questions in here, and I'll try to get to them later. It should throw a notification up on my phone, so if I'm not hanging off the side of a roof or driving, then I can I can answer those questions. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Jody. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I still have 2 minutes to kill. Gotta keep my word. So, financials. I should talk about financing. So I talked about the financing of these. So there's a $40,000 interest-free loan that's available. You can, if you're approved for that, they still want you to give them a paid invoice in order to get the dollars. It's that's our government at work. If you want to borrow money from our government, then you have to put the money up front. Well, we don't have that dollars, so we actually partner with a company called Finance It to bridge finance it to get to your to get the project done. So nobody actually has to put money up front. We'll eat the cost of that financing and get the project done for you. So yeah, thanks for that, Matthew. He's got your $0 bill, $41. So $7 HST. So you've paid $7 tax on your power. Matthew, where are you located at? I don't think you're one of my customers. I'm just curious. Thanks, Shelley. Thanks, Pam and Dave. I'm just curious where Matthew Dugas is. Matthew, I think I went to your home and maybe gave you an estimate at some point. Am I right? Maybe up towards Trackety? Maybe Hey, Robert. Awesome. Robert is one of our customers in Coquin. Hey, Josie, thanks. Try to convince my... Yeah, you know what? The energy monitors make a good gift. So, I gave one to my father for Father's Day, and it took him only 1 year to install it. Anyways, Matthew's from Moncton, just north of Moncton, Indian Mountain. Okay, maybe we've never met before, Matthew. I just know I was up that way with someone, maybe a Dugas as well. So, yeah, energy monitors are always a no-brainer. They're an easy thing to to get into. They're kind of a gateway drug, we'll call it, to energy and learning about your energy and where it's going, and then trying to get your power bills down, or at least finding out, what's costing you the dollars, and then you can go on the offense at some point. Any home typically that's been built in the last 5 or 10 years is solar's probably the next thing to do, because the last 10 years almost everyone's been doing heat pumps, and they're always well insulated, and your power bills are pretty much as low as you're going to get them without compromising on life, I guess. We're just going to put our thermostats down to 10 degrees and freeze the winter through. Well, when you have extra solar power in the bank, you just let her eat. I had one customer we've yet to install, and we designed her system a little bit larger. I won't say any names here. We designed her system a little bit larger, and Melanie Ryan contacted me from MB Power, and she said, it looks like you've got a system on there that's going to be making more power than what was anticipated. And anyways, what we didn't tell anyone was she wanted to get a hot tub, and her husband's argument was it's going to cost $100 a month to run a hot tub, which he's not wrong. But if we had extra solar there, then if we didn't use that power, we'd lose it. So she wanted the extra power because she knew she was going to talk her husband into this hot tub. So we're going to see how that goes. We'll follow up with me later on that. So we're going to have free solar power to offset the future hot tub that's going to come in there. Hey, Brett, thanks for that positive comment. And Daniel, blow in the spring when there's pollen everywhere, will you let it sit there? That's a good question. I'll tell you a quick story about that. The rain, the panels usually keep the rain usually keeps the panels really, we'll call it maintenance. I wouldn't bother with it. I just wait for the rain. I had one customer local to me. He put an 11 kilowatt system on, and it was like a month later, and he said, I'm only making half the power. And it was like a beautiful sunny day. I was comparing it with some other systems in his area, and we couldn't, it was making exactly half of what it should have, and it should have been overproducing because it was so nice out. And I went there and I diagnosed everything, and it was 2 strings, and both strings were showing voltage, and we just couldn't figure it out. I'm like, man, I don't know why this isn't working. Like, maybe we have bad panels. Like, never heard of that ever before. And what it was they had chip sealed the road by his house, and the dust laid on the panels, and it hadn't rained in like 2 weeks. And I didn't realize it because they looked great, and it was very uniform. The dust was very uniform on there. And after my second visit there, and I had talked to, it was Fronius inverter we were using there, and I swiped my hand across the panel. I was like, oh my word. And it was just full of dust, and he was only running half power. And one rainstorm, and he was back up over 11 kilowatts again. But yeah, if it's, he didn't lose out on much. He's a grid-tied customer, but it didn't rain in like 2 weeks. And that's what the problem was. It was just dust. So if you want, you can hose them down. Rain-X and stuff, I've never done anything like that. They are glass, so I guess that would work, make it a little slipperier, but I've not done that. More questions. Rudy, if you happen to come around and want to check out my system, you're welcome. Cool. I figured you've seen another setup before, but I've already received electricians that wanted to launch their own solar company. Okay, awesome, cool, nice. Phil, we will be offering affordable solar panel cleaning in the near future. Okay, cool, interesting. I see that a lot in Texas and Arizona and stuff. There's, and they're always pitching ads to me and stuff. I've never seen the need for it here. Maybe. Anyways, water-fed pole system. Rain will typically, clean the snow off in January once, but if I had not done it, it would produce. Yeah, okay, so that's good. Off-grid customers, especially like me, if there's snow on my array and my battery's dead, it's either I start the generator, which is costing me 60, 70 cents a kilowatt hour, or I clean my panels off. And for me, it's sometimes you just have to touch the side of the ground mount and all the snow just woofs off of it. I only had to clean it like 3 times last year. I love snow, and I wish I had more of it though. So, Bob, hey Bob Gillis, lots of stuff here. Summarize the print. Ooh. I can probably give you, if you go to the website, there's probably some information on there too. So, but hopefully we'll be seeing each other soon anyway, Bob, when we can quiz each other on some things. So Bob's up in Miramichi, he's a friend of mine. So, yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm going to go get some supper, and we will talk to you all later. You can continue to leave comments if you want or questions, and I appreciate your time, and have a great night.